Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's DinaKalmeta here, and for today, I do have some updates I'd like to bring to you guys that I haven't brought in a little bit. We're going to talk about Russia and China, Israel, Venezuela, the US, and France. But before that, I wanted to send out a huge thank you to everyone that participated in the polls this past weekend. Thank you so much, you guys. It really does help, as there will be some changes coming in October. And I will share that with you the closer we get. And I'm really excited about it. So if you haven't participated in the polls, go over to my community page and go and vote. With that said, let's get into the news. What is going on in France? Well, the Daily Mail, as well as other sources, are reporting that French hospitals have been ordered to make preparations for an imminent war in Europe, as Germany says it's on alert for Russia's military drills. France's Ministry of Health has told health bodies across the country to prepare for a possible major engagement by March 2026. According to documents, the French government is predicting a scenario where the nation will become a supporting state that has the capacity to take a massive number of wounded soldiers from France and other European nations. The order aims to anticipate, prepare, and respond to the health needs of the population while integrating the specific needs of defense in the health field. Now, this comes after Germany's chief of defense said that NATO and his nation's forces will be on alert ahead of Russian military drills. The chief of defense doesn't expect Putin's forces to attack NATO territory as Russia conducts their military training in Belarus with the Zapad 2025 exercise, but he wants the nation to be on guard. He said, "We don't have any indication that preparations for an attack are taken under the cover of the exercise, but we will be on guard, not just the German forces, but NATO." Now, this comes also amid fears that the world is on the brink of a third world war, according to the NATO chief, and it will be started by either Russia or China. He warned in July that the combined attacks from the Chinese and the Russian leaders could trigger a world war nightmare and bring the planet to the brink of Armageddon. According to the NATO chief, China would start by seeking to grab Taiwan while ensuring that Putin simultaneously attacks NATO territory. These are amid fears that Putin is eyeing the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, formerly part of the USSR. So very interesting report here. And Jesus said that we would see wars and rumors of wars, and that is exactly what this is right here. It's being reported that the Chinese leader is hosting a summit designed to showcase Beijing as a global leader capable of providing a counterweight to Western institutions. Heads of state and delegations from across Asia and the Middle East have met on Sunday in China for a 2-day summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a regional security grouping that has emerged as a cornerstone of the Chinese president and the Russian president's drive to rebalance global power in their favor. Members of the Shanghai Cooperation have stated that they want to resist the power politics to help build a fairer international system. Delivering a keynote speech to leaders and representatives of member and partner nations, the Chinese president invoked what he called the Shanghai spirit of mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality, consultation, respect for diverse civilizations, and pursuit of shared development. He praised the progress made by the SCO since its founding in 2001 and outlined new priorities. He said that members must oppose the Cold War mentality, block confrontation, and bullying practices, terms often used by Beijing to criticize U.S. and Western politics. The Chinese leader also urged members to pursue a win-win cooperation while respecting their national differences, strengthening exchanges between their peoples, and pushing for greater efficiency and evidence-based policymaking within the SCO. So it looks like is what China is trying to do is build a new world order. And we know with prophecy that this is eventually going to happen when the Antichrist comes into power. And speaking of China, Chinese researchers have unveiled the world's first 6G chip, capable of increasing service speed in remote areas to 5,000 times the current level, according to the South China Morning Post. Developed by scientists from Beijing-based Peking University and City University of Hong Kong, the all-frequency 6G chip can reportedly deliver mobile internet speeds of over 100 gigabytes per second across the entire wireless spectrum. Now, despite the potential benefits, both 5G and 6G technologies have faced criticism, with concerns over health risks from increased electromagnetic radiation, especially with higher frequency bands used in 6G. Vulnerabilities for cyber attacks also arise as more devices connect, and the environmental impact of expanding infrastructure alongside the digital divide could worsen inequality by leaving rural areas behind. Critics also warn of increased surveillance and data privacy issues as connectivity grows. Now, with that said, let's talk about what Russia's been up to, allegedly. The Sun is reporting that Russian GPS jamming is suspected of sabotaging the EU chief Ursula's plane, according to officials. The European Commission's president's jet was forced to land using paper maps after GPS systems were wiped out at the Bulgarian airport. A jet carrying her on Sunday afternoon lost all electrical navigation aids when approaching the city's airport. The incident is being treated as Russian interference, according to 3 officials. One of them told the paper that the whole area airport's GPS went dark. It was undeniably interference. The plane circled the airport for an hour before deciding to land using old-school paper maps. EU governments have warned that rising cases of GPS jamming are blamed on Russia, and which could cause a major air disaster. It renders commercial aircraft effectively blind mid-journey. Cases of GPS jamming have increased considerably in recent years, particularly in the Baltic Sea and Eastern Europe, close to Russia. CBS News is reporting that a guided missile cruiser USS Lake Erie was seen crossing the Panama Canal from the Pacific to the Caribbean on Friday night after the Trump administration deployed warships near the coast of Venezuela. AFP journalists saw the naval vessel passing through one of the canal's locks at around 9:30 p.m. and navigating east towards the Atlantic. The U.S. has said the deployment of warships to the southern Caribbean near Venezuela's territorial waters was on an anti-drug trafficking operation. The Lake Erie had been moored for the past 2 days at the port of Rodman at the canal's Pacific entrance. Washington has accused the Venezuelan president of leading a cartel and has doubled the bounty for his capture to $50 million. The U.S. has, however, made no public threat to invade Venezuela. Now, with that said, the Russian president said he had reached understandings with U.S. President Trump on ending the war in Ukraine during their meeting in Alaska last month. However, he did not confirm whether he would take part in peace talks with the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, which Trump has reportedly offered to broker and has given Putin until Monday to make a decision. On Friday, the French president reiterated that Putin faces a Monday deadline from Trump to agree to peace talks with the Ukrainian president. Macron said that the failure to meet the deadline would suggest Putin is playing Trump once again. After the Alaska meeting, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said that Putin had agreed to provide security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a possible future peace deal, though Moscow has not confirmed this. Meanwhile, Zelensky has dismissed proposals for a buffer zone with Russia in any peace deal, accusing Moscow of aiding genuine diplomacy and trying to delay an end to the conflict. So, interesting news there. Hopefully we will know soon what his decision is. Now, the Kyiv Independent is reporting that U.S. President Trump is negotiating with European allies to send U.S. private military companies to help secure a potential peace deal in Ukraine. The potential deal is an attempt to keep a pledge not to send the U.S. military to Ukraine while also serving as a deterrent against potential future Russian aggression. European soldiers would also likely take part by coming to western Ukraine to train Ukrainian soldiers. Turkey would participate in the deal as envisioned by providing naval security force in the Black Sea, critical to Ukrainian exports like grain and sunflower oil. But Russia seems unlikely to sign off on any such security guarantee, as it repeatedly ruled out the presence of NATO troops in Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal. Now, in the meanwhile, according to Prophecy Recon, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is preparing to move forward with a limited sovereignty plan in the Jordan Valley. While some ministers have hoped for broader measures, the Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer has been advancing a proposed focus only on partial sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Dermer believes that this narrow approach has a stronger chance of securing widespread agreement within Israel and even bipartisan approval in the U.S., unlike past efforts to push for full sovereignty. It goes on further to report that a senior government official said that Netanyahu is prioritizing partial sovereignty, aware that Europe may still respond critically, even though the plan is far more limited than the sweeping measures once considered during the Trump administration. Now, speaking of Israel, Hamas-affiliated outlets have condemned Jewish worship on the Temple Mount at the start of the Hebrew month of Elul, calling it a dangerous escalation and flagrant violation. Reports described groups of Jewish visitors entering the plaza under Israeli police protection, where they blew the shofar, danced, sang, and prayed. Hamas characterized these actions as deliberate provocations meant to challenge the Islamic claim to the site. The rhetoric framed the worshippers as settlers carrying out unprecedented violations against Islamic holy places, warning that such rituals threaten the historic and religious status quo of the site. The group accused Israel of providing cover for these ceremonies and pledged resistance, portraying the events as part of a broader struggle over sovereignty over the Temple Mount. Now, with that said, I'm sure many of you are aware that Turkey has severed all commercial and economic ties with Israel, as well as closing its airspace to some Israeli flights. The two countries have been at odds for months. In an address to the National Parliament on Friday, Fidan said that Turkey has completely cut off trade with Israel and closed our ports to Israeli ships. We are not allowing container ships carrying weapons and ammunition to Israel to enter our ports and airplanes to go into our airspace. The agency also reported that Turkish port authorities are now informally requiring shipping agents to attest that vessels are not linked to Israel and are not carrying any type of hazardous cargo. However, an Israeli official told the Jerusalem Post that Turkey had already announced severing economic relations with Israel in the past, and the relations continued. So right now, we're of course seeing this tension between Israel and Turkey, which we've seen in the past. But Turkey is one of the nations in Ezekiel 38 that will try and invade Israel, with Russia and Iran, as well as many other nations. So seeing this right now is more evidence of that prophecy eventually coming to pass. Breitbart News is reporting that Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed on Friday that the U.S. was denying and revoking the visas of senior Palestinian leaders who were said to have attended the opening of the United Nations General Assembly this month. The reason? The Palestinian had broken U.S. law and policy by indicating that they intended to declare a Palestinian state without a negotiated settlement with Israel to end decades of the conflict. A Breitbart News report in July said it was inevitable that Palestinian leaders would be barred from the entry after President Trump slammed sanctions on the Palestinian Authority over the statehood issue. The denial of visas will apply to the Palestinian Authority chairman, Abbas, and could disrupt the Palestinians' plans to declare statehood, as well as the intended recognition by France, the United Kingdom, Australia, and others. So we know that eventually the land of Israel will be parted. We're told that in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, and we also know from Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3, that Israel will become a burdensome stone. And that is exactly what we are seeing right now. So although the Trump administration has good intentions in regard to this situation, they're not going to be successful in the long run because it's prophecy. But the nations that do go up against Israel will be judged very harshly by God himself. So definitely a lot happening in the news in the last few days. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do leave your comments below this video. And also, when you have some time, come and visit me on my social media pages as well as my website at www.cww7news.com. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, God bless and stay safe.